Vaush, a prolific YouTuber and streamer who is known for his edgy political commentary, has turned into something of a cult figure among the new radical left that has emerged on platforms like YouTube and Twitch. Vaush, a soi-disant progressive, anti-fascist, and libertarian socialist, also happens to be a weapons-grade nonce, becoming infamous for a number of apologetic comments in support of the consumption of child pornography and paedophilia more generally.
If you're not paying for child porn, if you're just getting it, there is no moral or legal argument against that.
We've all jerked it to Lolly at some point or another.
What age android girl do you think the average American man would be most attracted to?
I think it would be somewhere
Do you not
from
want to answer
14.
this question?
No, I think it'd be somewhere from 14 to 17.
I was having sex with other kids. Lots of it. Gross sex. More than you'll ever imagine.
Recognize this empirically correct fact that I am about to spit. It is possible for an adult and a child to have a sexual relationship and for it to have positive outcomes on the child as well.
It is easier to find examples of Vaush endorsing the consumption of child porn or downplaying the iniquity of paedophilia than it is to find the moon in the night sky. Perhaps the most widely circulated example is his now infamous proclamation that there is no convincing legal or moral argument against the consumption of child porn. As he states,
I have yet to hear a convincing moral or legal argument as to why possession of child pornography should be illegal.
Now, this clip is by no means new or novel, and Vaush has received a lot of enmity for his remarks, and there have been some great videos making fun of Vaush's arguments for paedophilia. However, I think more can be done to directly engage with some of these arguments and to deconstruct the game of moral equivalency that Vaush is playing. Now, his fans will scream, "What about the context? He said it in context." So I'll play the rest of the clip.
Do you believe porn, which includes bestiality, increases the prevalence of zoophiles? Possibly, but I still don't care. I still think that, zoophile porn, like drawn stuff, it should be 100% legal. In fact, and this is going to be a real hot take, I have yet to hear a convincing moral or legal argument as to why possession of child pornography should be illegal. Actual child pornography. How's that for a hot fucking take? Now, to clarify on this take, as I feel it necessary to do so, we do not, in this country, typically criminalize people who have procured media or resources which were the product of abuse. It is not illegal to own necklaces that have slave diamonds or whatever. What are they called? Blood diamonds. Yeah, all of our clothes produced by sweatshops, our computers with silicon and lithium mined from literal fucking slaves. In our society, we have already deemed that people are not responsible for the mechanisms by which the media they consume and the content they engage with are produced. No. All you're about to make some really dumb fuck arguments. Because you encourage the production of porn? Yeah, and you encourage the slave mining that goes into blood diamonds when you buy the necklaces. You encourage the mining of and the slaves that mine the lithium when you purchase electronics, okay? It is the same thing. Don't come at me with your dumb fuck feels arguments, okay? If you feel you have a cogent argument, levy it my way, but I'm not interested in listening to your fucking feels on the issue. Vaush, bro, you're gonna need a pause. Whoop, look who just got banned. Oh, look who gets fucking banned for saying stupid shit in my channel. I don't tolerate that shit here, nope. Ooh, bruh, you have a point that I can't really argue against, but bruh, you should take a pause, bruh. Ooh, bruh, yikes, bruh, don't like that, bruh. Ooh, bruh. Ooh, bad look, bruh. Big oof, bruh. Fifi bad, feelings hurt. Thank you, Anarcho-Tac. I'm objectively right on this. They're morally identical. The difference being, of course, that there are far more people caught up in the slave labor and exploitation of the developing world than there are children we rape. So if anything, owning child pornography is probably a hell of a lot more ethical than wearing the t-shirts on your backs right now. You like that argument? Ooh, you like that? You like that moral culpability? You're all worse than fucking CP owners, and I am too. Do you like that? No ethical consumption under capitalism. Shit sucks, right? But if we accept that argument for slave labor, then we definitely have to accept it for child pornography. None of it is... Yeah, I agree. None of it is ethical. But we've already made this social decision that people are not responsible for the systems by which the stuff they own is produced. We've already made that decision. You're right, but you're kind of revealing your power level. No, this is exactly what I fucking mean. I'm right, but I'm revealing my fucking pedo power level because I'm right. No, this is a moral inconsistency in society. The answer should be that all of these things are bad.
It's important to note that Vaush says, and I quote, "I am objectively right on this. They are morally identical." He also notes that the only difference between these practices is that one is much more prevalent than the other, but as there are far more children caught up in slave labour and exploitation in the global south than there are children we rape. If anything, owning child porn is a heck of a lot more ethical than owning the t-shirts on your back right now. According to Vaush, the argument is that buying a Nike shoe for example, is unethical because acquiring the fruits of slave labour is unethical, and by procuring the fruits of slave labour, we drive demand for that product, resulting in the growth of the means of production and the unethical practices it entails in order to meet the increasing demand. The product we buy directly encourages the practices that manufacturers deploy. Vaush sort of concedes that watching child porn is unethical for the same reason, and then doesn't with his comment on the t-shirt. But what he is attempting to do is to draw a moral equivalency between the consumption of child porn and the procurements of goods made via exploitation. A moral equivalence is a logical fallacy where someone who typically knows they support something immoral attempts to justify their position by saying, well, X is just as bad and people seem to accept that, so Y is no different, as if these two unrelated concerns are really just the same. Vaush and his cult are sorely mistaken, which brings me to my three main arguments against his position. Number 1. Intrinsic versus extrinsic ethical violations. Number 2. Increased moral responsibility towards children. Number 3. Conditions into the consumerist mode of being. Vaush clearly pays no attention to the growing practice of ethically produced goods like lab-grown diamonds or fair trade products, which ensure that workers have the right to join an independent union, to collectively negotiate the working conditions, and that working conditions are equitable for all workers. Moreover, the Fair Trade Project ensures that salaries must be equal or higher than the regional average, or than the minimum wage in effect, and that health and safety measures must be established in order to avoid work-related injuries. These initiatives help tease apart the difference in the moral harm between the procurement of goods made under exploitation and slavery and the procurement of child porn. The farming of blood diamonds under arduous and exploitative conditions is clearly unethical, but the farming of blood diamonds need not be if we can improve workers' working conditions and free them from exploitation. In other words, producing goods in a modern capitalist economy is not intrinsically unethical, nor is their consumption. Wearing a t-shirt, all else being equal, is an amoral act, but rather such acts are extrinsically evil based on how such goods are produced. This is not the case for the production of child porn, because, as I would argue, child porn is intrinsically unethical due to the necessary moral harms that are waged in such an act. To have intercourse with a child, especially a very young child, is to by definition subject them to acts they cannot offer informed consent to subject them to acts that stir up feelings of confusion and, if such acts are taken to an extreme, of terror and pain. By definition, child porn entails that children cannot offer informed consent to intercourse itself or to the promulgation of such material on the internet. How can a child conceive of the long-term impacts that such material being uploaded on the internet will bring? Aristotle defined love as willing the good of the other, and talked about love as an intention to bear goodwill towards another for the sake of that person and not oneself. Willing the good means caring enough about another person to consider how your actions and their consequences might affect them, and then choosing not to act if the outcome would be negative. The production of child porn under this view and the act of intercourse expresses no regard for how our actions may affect the victim and what consequences they may or may not bring about. We render the child an instrument for the pedophile's own sexual desires and self-interest. Even if no such negative consequences unfold, the pedophile rolls the dice and decides that his own gratification is always worth the risk. We cannot have fair trade child porn so long as children are used to make such content, because such content carries with it intrinsic ethical violations. The difference is that the shoe is procured for the process of abuse, while the product of child porn is abuse. We have a greater moral duty to children because children are less able to provide for themselves and are more vulnerable to harm and manipulation than adults. Relating again to Aristotelian virtue ethics, what is required for the good or the flourishing of children compared to adults are a set of needs that are different from and often in addition to the needs of adults. Children, especially of a younger age, are less physically and cognitively developed and do not have the same cognitive capacity to assess manipulation, risk, and long-term consequences, nor obviously the physical strength to resist bad actors. To be in the company of a child, especially in the absence of parents or of parents who have their child's interests at heart, places the individual, in this case the paedophile, in a caring role in relation to the child. A key principle in care ethics is the concept of attentiveness, to be in tune with the needs of the moral patient in order to respond to them and to be aware of the power imbalance between the two. The concepts of attentiveness and responsiveness were developed by Joan Toronto to outline our moral obligations to moral patients, such as dementia patients under a nurse's care. However, the same principles apply when an individual finds themselves to be the sole carer of a child. Not only is forcing oneself upon a child a clear violation of the law, but it also does not take into consideration an adult's responsibility to meet the needs of a child, nor does it respect the child's dependence on the adult. By condoning sexual relations with a child, Vaush is saying that it's perfectly ethical to ignore the needs and desires of a child, and that dominating those that are dependent on us is perfectly justified, as the desires of the adult supersede the child's need for psychological and physical protection. There is an asymmetry in the power dynamics and needs between an adult and a child, as seen in the creation of child porn, and the adult-to-adult relations we find in labour exploitation. The modern-day slavery of workers clearly entails the exploitation of various power dynamics in society, whether it be of race, class, nationality, among other protected characteristics, which should be condemned, but the exploitation is even greater when we add children into the equation due to their diminished capacity to offer informed consent, their reduced capacity to physically resist their captors, and their additional needs for protection and provision. As Vaush freely admits, the consumption of child porn encourages the production of it, and if our ethical responsibility towards children is greater than it is towards adults, then there is no moral equivalence between these actions. Should the consumption of child porn necessarily entail the exploitation of children? I would take this even further. Let's presume the paedophile in question doesn't pay for the child porn and doesn't encourage the production of child porn. The individual in question would still be ethically responsible for consuming explicit images that the child could not have consented to being shared. By consuming that content, the paedophile places their own desires above the child's needs, when instead they should have reported such content and have it taken down, in order to prevent anyone else sharing what the child could not have consented to being shared, and in the process running the risk of other people in their life seeing these images. I agree with Vaush's concern that much, if not all, of our economic activity is tainted by the unethical manufacturing processes that produce consumer goods. However, we must ask how it is that we, as a society, have come to accept the exploitation of children and slaves in the manufacturing of goods. And, why we in the West aren't all nonces. For someone who positions themselves as a socialist, it's interesting that he is unaware of the simple Marxist argument to explain this discrepancy. Marx wrote in a contribution to the Critique of Political Economy, 1859, that society is split into consisting of an economic base, sometimes referred to as the infrastructure, where the mode of production takes place. This is where factories are built, goods are produced, the division of labour between workers is established, and the relations between those who sell their labour and the capitalists who own the means of production is crystallised. The superstructure, however, is everything outside of the means of production and encapsulates the agents of socialisation, such as the media, the education system, religion, the state, and anything else that may shape culture. The role of the superstructure under the Marxist critique is to legitimise the means of production and the economic infrastructure of society. This is achieved by utilising the agents of socialisation to promulgate the ruling class ideology and, in a Bernaysian sense, use marketing and advertising to equate that buying product equals good person. In one famous anecdote, Edward Bernays, the father of public relations, was presented with the problem of selling more cigarettes to women by one manufacturer. Bernays, understanding that all marketing must create a need for a given product, appealed to the political landscape of the time by hiring women in 1929 to march in the Easter Sunday parade while smoking cigarettes. These cigarettes were even referred to as torches of freedom, as Bernays had successfully equated smoking to female emancipation. This is the cultural hegemony we find ourselves in. Combine this with the deliberate attempt of manufacturers and food producers to alienate the public from the processes that produce our goods, and we have the almost mass conditioning of the public into buying consumer goods that are unethically sourced. This doesn't mean that buying a Nike shoe is responsibility free, but we also can't condemn people for being born in bondage and failing to break themselves free. This would be a case of what the scholar Lauren Berlant called cruel optimism. It's to offer upbeat and optimistic individual solutions to wide-scale systemic problems. Sure, people could refrain from buying anything unethically sourced and live lives removed from the capitalist system, but this is to demand people to be heroes. Conversely, consuming child porn is widely condemned for a litany of reasons. There is not an entire superstructure spending billions of dollars a day with some of the smartest people on the planet trying to nudge individuals to make certain decisions. One is to seek out the iniquity of child porn, whereas procuring goods is something we're all conditioned into long before we reach our adulthood. These are not morally equivalent acts, with the possible exception of Japan, I would add, which widely promotes the consumption of Chacoero and of porn clearly meant to imitate child pornography. Vaush, being a Westerner based in California, is far removed from such a milieu. In conclusion, I'm not sure if Vaush even believes in the arguments that he puts forward. He strikes me as just another soulless hack that is prepared to say and purportedly believe in almost anything that will get him clout and engagement. He's just another bad actor that's prepared to put forward bad arguments for bad reasons and bad motivations. However, I can't condemn Vaush alone for this disposition. That would be another case of cruel optimism. However, it is ironic for someone who defines themselves as a libertarian socialist that they are perhaps one of the clearest indictments of how larger capitalist and economic pressures can shape the superstructure, or in this case, alternative media sources like YouTube and Twitch. It is not clear whether Vaush is unironically evil, or a paedophile, or even if he's apologetic to those that own child pornography. Indeed, I suspect that Vaush is just like many others in this sphere who are prepared to suppress their own principles and chase the winds of alternative media wherever they may blow. Who can really say who the real Vaush is, or what his beliefs are, or whether he has any moral character to speak of. However, it is always worthwhile engaging against bad actors and deconstructing bad arguments. Even if Vaush doesn't believe in these arguments, that doesn't necessarily mean that others won't. And by acting in bad faith and putting forward bad arguments for spurious reasons, Vaush does show that he's prepared to chase his own desires, even if it means creating a toxic atmosphere and polluting the alternative media streams that we now become ever increasingly embedded in.